was an incredibly busy month for obvious reasons. So I really do hope that you, my throat, that you had an amazing holiday season, whether you celebrate or not. I hope that you're staying safe, staying healthy, because there's so many sicknesses going on right now, and there's just so much craziness happening in the world. There's so many things that we have to look out for, but we are doing our reading wrap up. That's what we're here for. So for me, December was a pretty good reading month. I read 5 books. I read three physical books and 2 books on my Kindle. So let's go ahead and talk about the Kindle books first, and then we'll end the video with the physical books. So the first book that I read was White Mulberry by Rosa Kwan Easton. I believe this was the first book I read in December too, and it was on my Kindle. This book is available on Kindle Unlimited, and I was just scrolling looking for what my next read was going to be, and this book spoke to me so vividly, so loudly. This book takes place in 1928. Japan occupied Korea, and we meet our main character, Mi Young, who is a little teenage girl living in Korea. Like I said, they're occupied by Japan at the time, so there's so much political wise going on. And then she lives with her mother and her sister, and she has another sister that is older than both of them that was married off, and she doesn't have a good relationship with her father. He lives in like a different town with his other family and only stops by once in a while to like check, on the mom and the girls and like see if they're okay. And it was just really, really hard times, obviously. So Mi Young, I believe when she was like 13, her sister was 15, and her mom was like, pretty much, I'm gonna marry you off and send you away. And they kind of knew that like the mom was gonna do this because times were really hard and she couldn't afford to feed them and take care of them. And this broke Mi Young, because her sister is her best friend. They've been growing up together. They do everything together. And she just also understands how dangerous and hard that this can be for her sister. Like, she could never see her sister again, because her first sister that got married off, she left. Like, she got married and she left. I think she went to like China, or like in that time China, and they never heard from her again. And so the author kind of insinuates through the writing that she's dead, and they know that she's dead. So Mi Young is just very concerned about her sister's safety, and her sister ends up getting married and moving to Japan. And Mi Young is the last child at home with her mother, and she is just like praying that she's not, married off at a young age, pretty much like a child bride. And these are the things that she's like facing and battling. And moving forward in the book, she ends up going to find her sister as she gets older, and her sister is in Japan. And at this time, the Japanese did not like the Koreans, and they just saw them as like lower than them. And in Japan, Japanese people were just considered better. They just thought of themselves as better. So when Mi Young goes to find her sister, her sister allows her to live with them, i.e. the sister and her husband, who's kind of abusive and an alcoholic, but they allow Mi Young to live with them. And Mi Young, gets a job, and she's looking for jobs and just getting out in the community. And something very popular at the time was to take on her sister really look down on her because she's like, I know that life is hard for us here, but how dare you forget who you are and where you come from. And Mi-young is internally battling this identity crisis of like being a Korean born woman living in Japan, but knowing that like Japanese people don't like Koreans, and you know, getting the scrutiny from her sister because she feels like her sister doesn't understand. And then Mi-young is also very into Christianity, and so that ties into the book, and it's very frowned upon for the Koreans to like meet at Christian churches and assemble religiously. So there's so many obstacles, and throughout this story, like this was such a powerful story, because I can't even sit here and explain everything to you, because Mi-young ends up meeting someone through the church and they fall in love and they get married, and she has like a mother-in-law from hell, and then something happens, and this whole story is just like following that journey for Mi-young. And even at the end, like there really is no resolution in this story. At the end, it's not like a happy ending, and it just kind of ends. And to me, that doesn't make it bad, don't get me wrong. To me, that's just like the most heartbreaking part, because there's so much more that I need to know. So the author, Rosa Kwan Easton, actually based this story off of her, I believe her great-grandmother, or the story's based off her grandmother. So these are like accounts of things that actually happen, and it's just so incredibly powerful to read for one, but heartbreaking for two, to know like these kind of things were happening and people were going through these kind of things. I really recommend this book to anybody who likes history and heart-wrenching stories and just powerful stories, because yes, it was a very hard, not like a very hard read, but it was a very emotional read, if you know what I mean. But it was so beautifully written, and it really opens your eyes to the things that, you know, some of our parents and some of our grandparents and even our great-grandparents had to endure. I gave this book 5 stars. It was so beautifully written. It was such a great story. The next book that I read, it was a very short one. It was The Answer Is No by Frederick Backman, or Bachman. Is it Bachman or Backman? This had just came out when I read it. I had been watching it on my Kindle to see like when it would be available. It is a short story, and it follows our main character, Lucas, who essentially is like antisocial. His perfect like Friday night is playing video games, eating pad thai with peanuts, and not talking to anybody. And then he lives in an apartment complex, and essentially like somebody starts throwing trash outside of the apartment complex. So the apartment management team is like going door to door and like asking people to see, you know, different things in their house. And somehow Lucas, you know, he just can't stop. He just can't close the door. And he keeps getting roped into like these conversations, and more people start getting added to the conversations, and it starts going on for like days and days at a time. And then he finds himself in the apartment complex committee, and he doesn't even want to be in it, and ends up like solving the problem that they're after. It was pretty good. It was a short one. Frederick Backman has a very specific writing style and a very specific tone in all of his writing. So if you're not used to that, like witty, sarcastic, very, you know, in your face kind of tone, was The Secret Life of Albert and Whistle. This was a good one. This was a good one. This follows Albert. He works for the Royal Mail, so he's a mailman, and he's just living his life, going about his life. He's a man of routines. He's a bit of a loner, and he doesn't really converse with his co-workers. He just goes to work, does his job, goes home, always has the same lunch, just always follows the same routine. And his 64th birthday is coming up, and the Royal Mail is like, hey, you're old, you gotta retire, pretty much. And he was like, I knew this day was always coming, but I just didn't expect it to come so soon. And it really puts into perspective for him, what's next for me. I've devoted, ever since he entered the working force, he was working for the Royal Mail. So he's looking back and he's like, I've devoted my entire adult life to this job, and now I'm free. What is next for me? And growing up, Albert had a very, tough childhood. His mom could only have one kid, and then she suffered from depression and was on medication and was just really, really mean to Albert, and up until she died. And he took care of her in her dying days. And his dad had died years and years earlier, and they had a very tumultuous relationship, and they just didn't relate to each other. So Albert says, you know what, I'm gonna go on the greatest journey of life, and I'm going to find love. Albert is going to find his first true love. He's only loved one person, and they ended horribly, and he needs to go back out there and see what his first true love is doing and find them. This is a story of self-identification, because Albert is gay. He's a gay man, and nobody knows that. He just feels ashamed because that is where the disconnect with his father was. He couldn't be his true self because his dad hated gay people. And it takes you along that journey of Albert looking for his first true love. It was such a beautiful story, and I loved I just read this and I felt like, you know what, I'm there, I feel it, I'm feeling all of the emotions, and it really does put into perspective what a lot of people had to deal with, just wanting to love who they love. And even in some countries still today, people face that, and they're ostracized, and it's terrible. And this book was such an eye-opener to those emotions, and it was a beautiful story nonetheless. And it has a few surprises inside that, I'm not going to tell you, because if you're interested in reading it, I think you should go into it with an open heart and get to experience the true beauty of this book for yourself. The next book I read was Love is a Revolution by Renee Watson. I've had this book on my TBR for quite some time. This is YA. Don't come for me. I love my YA. But I will say this book felt very YA. So this follows our main character, one of our main characters, Nala, and Nala lives with her cousin, and she just kind of had her mom, in so many words, it has been a deadbeat, couldn't keep a job, couldn't get a high-paying job, and they got into it, and she left her mother's house, and she went loves the story. I liked it, don't get me wrong, like it was pretty good, very YA, like I said, and there's nothing wrong with that. It felt really rushed, and Nala and Ty are supposed to have this connection. They like each other and they want to date and stuff, but I just did not feel like they were compatible. Obviously they weren't compatible because the relationship was built off of lies, because Nala doesn't work at the nursing home. She's not vegetarian, and she's just not the person that she says she is, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know, I didn't really like Ty. He gave me weirdo freak vibes. And I still like the story. I read this in 2 days, I think. And it was really good, besides the back. And but I just didn't like the relationship between the two main characters. The next book. Do you like the tapping better like this? The book tapping, that is, like this. Or with nails? I think it sounds so much better like this. So this is the next book I read, How to End a Love Story. When I tell you, this book took me on a freaking roller coaster of emotions and vibes and just everything. I'm not kidding. When I started this book, let me tell you, I wanted to DNF it right away. The female main character, Helen, in the beginning is so insufferable. And there's gonna be a little tiny spoiler. Well, there's gonna be a spoiler, so if you want to read this book, or you're reading it or whatever, and you don't want me to spoil it, stop watching, skip to the end, because the only way I can portray this book is by telling you everything. So we meet our female main character, Helen, and she wrote a novel, and it's being picked up to be turned into a television show. And we meet our male main character, Grant. He is a television writer, so he will take the book and turn the book into, the TV show. And they are from the same hometown. And Helen had a younger sister, who ended up killing herself. But how she killed herself is she walked in front of a car one night and was struck and died. And the person who hit her was Grant. And essentially they say there was nothing Grant could have done. He never would have saw her coming, and he's really worked through that. But he showed up to the funeral because he thought, I just killed this girl on accident and I feel bad. And when he walks into the funeral at the church, Helen's mom turns around and is like, "Get out, I never want to see you again, you killed my daughter, blah 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 blah." So Grant has done all the work, and he's worked on himself and worked through this traumatic experience, and he didn't know either her sister, they weren't close or anything. So Helen, she's showing up to sit in the writer's room, and she's like, "Oh shit, it's Grant Shepherd, the guy who killed my sister on accident." And she's just so fucking mean to him. She is so insufferable and so fucking mean and just so ugly towards him. And I'm not gonna lie, that made me want to DNF the book, because she's very much black cat energy, and Grant Shepherd is just golden retriever, so sweet, and he's we can make this work, we can work together and be fine. And she's like, "No, you need to quit, and he's like, "Well, how am I gonna pay my bills?" And she was like, "Fine, whatever." And she just hates how much everybody likes him and how likable he is, and everybody thinks he's a good guy. And I mean, rightfully so, he is a good guy. There's nothing that he's done, so that is the big shebang, because they have this history together, and sibling, and especially not, you know, in the way that the female main character did. But I felt like she could have had a little bit of compassion for Grant. Like, can you imagine how hard that would be for somebody to be 18, driving, you know, just driving down the road at night, and someone jumps in front of their car and then they're dead? Like, you know what I'm saying? So she was so freaking mean to him in the beginning, but they just end up spending so much time together, and they create a pact because they like each other. But Helen has her guard up so high, so she's like, okay, we'll give it to the end of filming, you know, the first season of the show, and then we'll go our separate ways and never talk to each other again. Of course, it never happens that way. And then her parents find out that Grant's working on this show, and they're just so mad at her. I just felt like everybody was so not understanding towards Grant. Like, even Grant's mom was like just so lovely and, you know, just so accepting. But Helen and her parents were so incredibly inseparable and put all of the blame on Grant. And I just hated that. But it got better. It got better. And I'm so happy that I stuck through. I didn't DNF it, because I'm not gonna lie, the beginning was really rough. Like, I just couldn't get into the flow, and then I hated the female main character and I just wasn't feeling it. But it got so much better, and I loved it. I loved it. 5-star read. Like, it was so good. Okay, my love, this is the end of the video. I feel so awkward because I haven't filmed in such a long time, and I think I forgot how to ASMR. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. It is a new, oh my god, that was my throat. It is a new year, new beginnings, just new everything, and I'm so excited to like see what this year has in store for us, and like what's gonna go on, especially for my channel, what is gonna come of it, and I'm just so excited. So I hope that you had a very Merry Christmas and an extremely safe